The last thing my grandfather said to me was a number, 45. He was in a hospital bed, his skin the color of old newspaper, his eyes fixed on a corner of the ceiling where nothing was. The nurses said he'd been like that for 3 days, staring, whispering the same number over and over. 45, 45, 45. I held his hand. It was cold, not the cold of dying, the cold of something that had already left and was just waiting for the rest to catch up. 45 what, Grandpa? I asked. He turned his head. His eyes focused on me for the first time in weeks, and he smiled. Not a comforting smile, a smile that said, "You'll find out soon enough." He died that night. I was 22. I forgot about the number for the next 23 years. Now I'm 45, and I haven't slept in a week. Let me start over. My name is Mira. I'm a geologist, which means I spend a lot of time in places where people don't live. Mountains, deserts, the edges of craters. I like the quiet. I like the way rocks remember things that happened millions of years ago. I like the feeling of being small. 3 months ago, I got a contract to survey a site in the Nevada desert. A private landowner had found an unusual rock formation on his property. A perfect circle of basalt columns, like a miniature Stonehenge, hidden in a dry wash. He wanted to know if it was natural or man-made. I drove out with my equipment, a tent, and enough water for a week. The site was remote. 2 hours on a dirt road, then another hour on foot. The columns were exactly as described. 45 of them, arranged in a circle about 30 feet across. Each column was roughly the same height, about 4 feet, and each one had a groove carved into its surface. Not natural, definitely man-made, but the grooves weren't decorative. They were numbers. Not written, carved in a way that made them look like they'd been grown into the stone. 1 through 45 in order around the circle. I spent the first day taking measurements and photographs. The second day, I decided to dig a little, see if there was anything buried at the center of the circle. I started with a hand trowel, scraping away the dry topsoil. About 6 inches down, I hit something soft. Not rock, not bone, cloth, old, rotting, the color of dust. I brushed away more dirt, a sleeve, a collar, a child's dress, small and white, crumbling at the edges. I stopped digging. I called the landowner. He said he'd never seen a dress out there. He said the columns had been there as long as anyone could remember, but no one had ever found anything buried in the middle. He sounded nervous. He said maybe I should come back to the ranch and we could talk about it. I packed up my things, but before I left, I looked at the columns one more time. The numbers were clear in the afternoon light. 45 grooves, 45 markers, and at the center, where the dress had been, the dirt was now smooth. No hole, no cloth, just packed earth as if nothing had ever been disturbed. I drove back to the ranch. The landowner, a man named Carl, met me on the porch. He was in his 70s, with hands like leather and eyes that wouldn't look at mine. "You found something," he said. It wasn't a question. A dress, a child's dress. It was buried at the center of the circle, but when I looked again, it was gone. Carl nodded slowly. He lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "My daddy told me about that place." He said his daddy told him about it. Goes back 6 generations. They called it the counting circle. Said that every 45 years, something happens there. Something bad. Something that makes the ground remember. Remember what? He took a long drag. Remember the child, the one who got lost, the one who counted 45 steps from her front door to the well and fell in on the 45th. They never found the body, but they found the circle the next day. Just appeared overnight. 45 stones. And every 45 years since, someone disappears. He finally looked at me. The last time was 1978. A girl named Ellie Mayhew. She was 6 years old. She walked out of her house one morning and never came back. They searched the desert for weeks. Nothing. But my daddy said he went out to the circle the night she disappeared. Said the stones were glowing. Said he heard counting. Counting? A little girl's voice. Counting from 1 to 45. And when it got to 45, it stopped. And then it started over. He said it's been counting for 200 years, and it won't stop until someone finishes. I didn't sleep at the ranch. I drove to the nearest motel, 2 hours away, and lay awake staring at the ceiling. I could still see the circle in my mind, the stones, the grooves, the empty center where the dress had been, and I could hear it, faint like a radio playing in another room, counting 1, 2, 3. The next morning I went back. I don't know why. Curiosity maybe. Or something else. Something that had been waiting in my grandfather's eye in the number he whispered on his deathbed. 45. Maybe I was supposed to be here. Maybe I'd been walking toward this circle my entire life. I brought a tape recorder. I set it up in the center of the circle and let it run for an hour. When I played it back, I heard wind. I heard my own breathing, and underneath it, there fell a child's voice. 39, 40, 41. 2. I stopped the tape. My hands were shaking. I rewound and listened again. The counting was there. Always the same numbers, always the same voice. And when it reached 45, it didn't stop. It started over. 1, 2, 3. An endless loop. I spent the next week at the circle. I brought a Geiger counter, a magnetometer, a thermal camera. Nothing. No radiation, no magnetic anomalies, no heat signatures. Just the counting. Always the counting. And the feeling that someone was standing behind me, just out of sight, waiting for me to turn around. On the 5th night, I decided to dig again. I brought a shovel this time. I dug at the center of the circle, deeper than before. 2 feet, 3 feet, 4. The soil was dry, compacted, undisturbed, no dress, nothing. But when I reached 5 feet, the shovel hit something hard. Stone. A flat stone like a lid. I cleared away the dirt. It was a door. Not a door like in a house. A stone slab, circular, about 2 feet across, with a brass ring in the center. The ring was green with age, but when I touched it, it was warm. The stone had carvings around its edge, the same numbers, 1 through 45. And in the center, a phrase in a language I didn't recognize. I pulled out my phone to take a picture. The battery was dead. I hadn't charged it in 2 days, but that wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the time on the screen before it went dark. 4:45. I hadn't looked at the time. I hadn't set an alarm, but the number was there, burned into the display for a second before the screen went black. I grabbed the brass ring. I pulled. The stone lid didn't move. I pulled harder. Nothing. And then I heard the voice, not from the tape recorder, not from the air, from inside my head. Pull at 45. Not before, not after, at 45. I looked at my watch. It was 4:44 p.m. I had 1 minute. I don't know why I waited. I don't know why I didn't run. But I stood there, my hand on the brass ring, counting the seconds. 59, 58, 57. The sun was low, casting long shadows. The stones around me seemed to lean inward. The grooves on their surfaces began to glow. Faint at first, then brighter, a soft amber light like the inside of a fire. 10 seconds. 9, 8. I could feel the ring vibrating. 7, 6, 5. Child's voice was counting with me, louder now, excited. 4, 3, 2, 1, 4:45. I pulled the lid, swung open as if it weighed nothing. A blast of air rushed out, warm and dry, smelling of dust and old flowers. Below me was a hole, not a shaft, not a tunnel, just darkness. Absolute, complete darkness that seemed to swallow the light from the setting sun. I looked down, and I saw steps, stone steps, carved into the earth, descending into the black. I couldn't see the bottom. I couldn't see the walls. Just steps, one after another, each one glowing faintly with the same amber light. And on each step, a number. 1, 2, 3, down into the dark. The child's voice spoke again. Not inside my head this time. From the bottom of the stairs. 45 steps. That's how far I fell. That's how long I've been counting. Come down, Mira. Come down and finish. I should have closed the lid. I should have driven back to the city and never looked at another rock formation as long as I lived. But my grandfather's voice was in my ears now, whispering the number he'd whispered on his deathbed, 45. And I knew with a certainty that felt like falling that he hadn't been warning me. He'd been inviting me. He'd been down there. He'd seen what was at the bottom, and he'd spent his whole life waiting for me to be old enough to follow. I took the first step. The stone was warm. The light pulsed under my feet. The darkness above me closed in as soon as my head passed the rim of the hole. I couldn't see the sky anymore. I couldn't see the circle. Just the steps and the numbers and the counting. 1, I whispered. The child's voice answered. 2. We counted together. Me and the girl who had fallen into the well 200 years ago. 3, 4, 5. The air grew thicker. The walls, I could see them now faintly, were covered in drawings, stick figures, houses, wells, and the number 45 written in every language, every hand, every shade of fading. 6, 7, 8. The steps were getting steeper. My legs ached, my lungs burned. 9, 10, 11. I could smell something sweet, like honeysuckle, like the perfume my grandmother used to wear. 12, 13, 14. The darkness wasn't empty anymore. There were shapes in it. People, standing on either side of the stairs, watching me pass. Their faces were pale, their eyes were closed, and their mouths were moving, counting silently, forever. 15, 16, 17. I recognized one of them. My grandfather. He was young, maybe 30, standing at the edge of the light. His lips were moving. 45, 45, 45. He opened his eyes and looked at me. He smiled, the same smile from the hospital bed, and he pointed down. 18, 19, 20. The steps were narrowing. The walls were closing in. I could feel the weight of the earth above me, pressing down but not crushing, holding, waiting. 21, 22, 23. The child's voice was clearer now, closer. I could hear her breathing, the soft shuffle of her feet on stone. She was just ahead of me, just out of sight. 24, 25, 26. The shapes on the walls were no longer people. They were numbers, carved, painted, burned into the stone. 45, over and over, in patterns that hurt to look at. 27, 28, 29. The air was cold now. My breath fogged. The light from the steps was the only illumination. It flickered, like candlelight casting shadows that moved on their own. 30, 31, 32. I could see the bottom. A landing. A door. The same white door from the drawings. Small, child-sized, with a brass knob. And standing in front of it, her back to me, was the girl 33, 34, 35. Her dress was white. Her hair was brown, tangled, falling past her shoulders. She was barefoot. She was small. She was not moving. 36, 37, 38. I reached the landing. The steps ended. I stood behind her, my heart pounding, my mouth dry. The counting stopped. 39. She said it. I didn't. She turned. Her face was the face of a 6-year-old, but her eyes were the eyes of someone who had been counting for 200 years. They were tired. They were patient. They were hungry. You came, she said. I knew you would. Your grandfather promised. My grandfather? He was the last one. 45 years ago. He made it all the way down. He saw me. He touched the door, but he didn't open it. He said he would send someone who would finish. She stepped closer. The air around her shimmered like heat rising off asphalt. He sent you. On your 45th birthday. I'm not 45 yet, I said, not for another month. She smiled. Down here, time doesn't matter. Down here, you're already 45. You've always been 45. The number chose you before you were born. She pointed at the door. Open it. Say the number with me one more time, and I can go home. I looked at the door. Behind it, I could hear a voice. A woman's voice, old and cracked, singing a lullaby. The same lullaby my grandfather used to hum when he rocked me to sleep. That's my mother, the girl said. She's been singing for 200 years. She's still waiting for me to come up the steps. But I can't go up. I have to go through. Through to where? She tilted her head. Home, where I belong. The place I was trying to reach when I fell. It's not up there, it's down here. The well was just the door. The counting was just the key. And you, Mira, are the hand that turns it. She held out her hand. In her palm